The cutlery clattered louder than usual inside Levant, the most expensive restaurant in the district, as Marcus Hale, young tech billionaire, suit perfectly pressed but hands visibly tense, tried for the third time to explain his proposal to Mikhail Orlov, a stone-faced Russian investor with the posture of a retired general. Between them sat untouched wine, untouched steak, and a negotiation that was about to die on the table. Orlov's eyes were not angry, they were bored. And boredom was worse than anger. Bored meant he was already mentally gone. Marcus turned pages of the brief, pointed at growth projections, made slow attempts at simplifying English words, but his voice kept cracking between desperation and disbelief. His interpreter, who was supposed to bridge the entire deal, had canceled at the last minute due to a medical emergency. Marcus thought he could wing it. He was learning the hard way that he couldn't. Orlov lifted his napkin slowly, a small motion with the weight of a verdict. That gesture in this world meant, I am done. Before I continue, if you believe that ordinary people can change the course of powerful lives in just one moment, hit subscribe to StoryHaven TV, like this video, and tell us in the comments if you'd step in to help a stranger in a moment like this. Stories like these only stay alive when you engage. Orlov placed the napkin aside. Marcus swallowed. Sir, just 30 more seconds. I can try to. Orlov raised a hand, silent but heavy. Enough. The billionaire, who had commanded entire conference halls without blinking, now looked like someone cornered. He rubbed his thumb along the edge of the table, a subtle habit he had when panic entered his bloodstream. If this meeting failed, months of preparation would dissolve in one dinner. From the far end of the room, a young waitress paused with a tray in her hands. She hadn't meant to hear a single word. Staff at Levant trained to be invisible, but she caught fragments of the frustrated English, saw the Russian man's growing dismissal, saw the billionaire's shoulders slump not with arrogance, but humiliation. Something in her own chest twisted. Her name was Lina Voss, slender, mid-20s, dark hair tucked into a bun, face too intelligent for the job she was doing. She hesitated where she stood, pulse accelerating. She told herself to keep walking. Waitresses do not interfere in billion-dollar conversations, but her feet would not move. She knew Russian, not because she was privileged, because she once had a completely different life planned. Years ago, she had been accepted into a cultural exchange and language track abroad. Full ride, before her father died and debts dragged her into service work instead of universities. She hadn't spoken Russian aloud in a year and a half, but she understood every word Mikhail Orlov had muttered impatiently under his breath. You brought me here for projections and gestures, he had said in Russian. Not competence. Marcus didn't understand it, but Lina did, and hearing it hurt her more than it hurt him. Marcus tried again, weakly. This partnership would bring your portfolio into the Western AI market. It would. You insist on speaking what neither of us can clearly exchange, Orlov said flatly in accented English. A partnership without clarity is not a partnership. It is gambling in fog. Silence sat like a third person at the table. Lina's fingers tightened around the tray. She inhaled once, long. This is where most people keep walking. This is where she did not. She took 2 steps forward. Excuse me, she said, voice steady but soft. Both men turned. Staff never interrupted like this. Marcus blinked like he was seeing a ghost. Orlov's eyes narrowed, not hostile, just curious. What is a waitress doing here? I shouldn't interrupt, Lina continued, but I speak Russian. If you, she turned to Orlov, finished the sentence in clean, fluent Russian, would permit me to translate so conversation doesn't collapse for the wrong reason. The restaurant seemed to stop breathing. Orlov's brow rose. He looked at her again, longer this time, recalibrating his judgment. It wasn't just that she spoke, it was the confidence with which she delivered it. The poise. The absence of fear. Marcus looked like someone just pulled him out of deep water. Orlov finally gave one slow nod. Not generous, just accepting reality. Then sit, he said in Russian. Lina didn't sit. She remained standing between them, as if ready to retreat if ordered. But she lifted her chin slightly and waited. Orlov switched to Russian. Tell him I am not interested in theatrics. I want structural clarity, no persuasion. Lina translated perfectly into English, tone calm, paced like a professional. Marcus straightened. The relief in his eyes converted instantly into composure. Tell him I understand. I will speak in data and structure only, he replied. She relayed it back in Russian, fluid, not a single hesitation. Orlov leaned in. Then begin again. Marcus exhaled once, reset, and started from the fundamentals. This time, every sentence landed cleanly on the other side. Lina did not just transfer language. She transferred tone, intention, and the subtext beneath both men's voices. When Marcus softened a request, she softened it in Russian. When Orlov was razor blunt, she carried the sharpness without dulling it. Time changed the texture around the table. Minutes turned to 40. 40 turned to 90. Staff whispered at a distance. No one had ever seen a waitress mid-shift do what she was doing. At one point, Orlov even leaned back, intrigued for the first time. Tell him his AI model avoids the mistake most Western firms make. They build solutions for laboratories, not for people. He is adaptable. Lina translated. Marcus blinked once, stunned. Praise from Orlov was rarer than equity itself. She continued to stand without water, without break, without fear. By the second hour, the atmosphere had completely rewritten itself. What began as a failed dinner morphed into the moment of a deal being born. And it was born because a waitress decided not to walk past someone else's silence. By the time coffee replaced wine and the plates had been cleared, the energy at the table no longer resembled collapse. It resembled alignment. Orlov no longer sat with arms crossed. He leaned toward Marcus with the body language of someone who was now considered, not dismissed. Then came the moment. Orlov closed the portfolio, looked at Lina instead of Marcus, and spoke in Russian. You remind me of the kind of people who build nations, not corporations. People who step forward when it is easier to disappear. Marcus stared, not understanding the words but sensing the shift in gravity. Then Orlov looked at Marcus briefly and spoke again, softly, still in Russian. Tell him I will sign. Lina inhaled. The words struck her chest before leaving her lips. She turned to Marcus, voice barely steady, and translated. He says he will sign the deal. Marcus froze, not in disbelief, but in the overwhelming stillness that comes when you expected ruin and got rescue instead. He didn't move for 3 whole seconds, then said only one word, almost in a whisper. Why? Orlov answered in Russian without even being asked to. Because someone without power risked pride to build the bridge you could not. Lina translated again. Silence fell, the rare kind where the human meaning outweighs the business outcome. When Orlov finally stood to leave, he buttoned his coat and, in slow, deliberate English, said directly to Lina, Your father, whoever he was, taught you correctly. She bit down a rising tear. She bowed, not dramatically, just enough for respect. Orlov left. The restaurant seemed to exhale all at once. Marcus remained seated, breathing like someone learning oxygen again. After a long silence, he looked at Lina with a kind of gratitude that money couldn't express, and said quietly, You didn't just save a deal. You saved the months of people whose futures hang on what happens next. She shook her head gently. I just didn't want kindness, or effort, to be wasted because of silence. Hours later, when her shift ended and she stepped outside into the night, Marcus was waiting by the curb. No arrogance, no boardroom armor, just a man holding an envelope in both hands. I know you don't know me, he said, voice stripped of every defense. And you owe me nothing, but I owe you more than a thank you. He handed it to her. Inside was a check, an amount high enough to make the body tremble, and a handwritten note. For building the bridge when I had none. Lina closed the envelope and, steady but gentle, held it back out to him. I don't need your money, she said. You gave me something different. You proved I'm not done. That's enough. She tried to walk away, but she didn't know that the next morning, before she even woke, Marcus Hale would make a call that would rewrite her trajectory forever. Not a gesture of charity, a position, not as a waitress, not as a translator, but as part of the international strategy team that would run the very expansions she helped save. Within months, Lina's life transformed. She left the apartment with the cracked paint. She attended boardrooms instead of refilling glasses. She launched cross-cultural initiatives for startups that had never been heard across borders before. And years later, when a journalist asked Orlov why he trusted Hale's firm over giants with more leverage, he answered in Russian. Because the soul of a company is revealed not by its billionaires, but by the courage of the people they ignore. If this story reminded you that courage still wins in a world obsessed with power, Support the work we do here at StoryHaven TV. Like, share, and subscribe so stories like this continue reaching people who need them. Before you scroll away, tell us in the comments. What is one act of courage or kindness you witnessed that changed something big? Because sometimes one quiet decision, like Lina's, is all it takes to change the ending.